I think my lesbian wife is falling in love with me, and I'm scared because I'm falling for her too. We got married for convenience and mutual desperation. I was 27 and had just moved back home after getting laid off. I had no money, and my traditional Chinese parents were threatening to kick me out into the streets unless I found a girl I intended to marry. My cousin Kim had a coworker who was facing her own crisis. She was gay and needed a husband on paper to make her parents back off. I met Maylene at a dim sum place in the International District on a Sunday. First thing out of her mouth was, "So you're the Batman sent to make my parents back off." I laughed pretty hard at that. We spent 40 minutes negotiating what this was going to look like. Turns out she needed marriage to escape her conversion camp that was starting in 3 months. We left with a formal business handshake that would make a president jealous. Our wedding was at some prestige hotel on a Saturday afternoon. Our entire immediate and extended families attended. 120 relatives watching our every move. During our first dance to some Ed Sheeran song neither of us knew, she whispered, "Smile harder, your aunt's taking video," while I frantically tried to remember which hand goes where. We fed each other cake for the photos, her fingers trembling against my mouth. She laughed at my uncle's work stories like I'd told her about his job. I kept my arm around her waist during toasts, feeling her tense every time someone clinked glasses for a kiss. We managed 3 pecks total, quick and dry, like checking boxes on a form. Between photos, she'd squeeze my hand twice, our signal for, "Help me remember this person's name." I did the same when my relatives cornered us about trying for kids soon, but my mom cried, and her dad made a speech about family honor. The whole performance cost thousands I didn't have, but our parents left convinced we were in love, and with promises to reimburse me for the entire thing. The apartment we moved to in Seattle became an exercise in parallel living. She claimed the living room as her workspace. I lived in my bedroom, job hunting and taking online courses to help build my resume. We'd navigate around each other in our narrow kitchen, mumbling, "Excuse me," operating the coffee maker in shifts. For 8 months, we were the most polite strangers imaginable. I'd leave extra Thai food in the fridge for when she got hungry working through the night, and she'd replace my coffee pods she used up. But then, my parents ambushed us. They texted me literally 1 hour away from my apartment. "We're here to meet our daughter-in-law properly, since you barely let us talk at the wedding." I was at a job interview, my phone on silent. Maylene called me 17 times before texting, "Your parents here, help." By the time I left the interview and raced home, Maylene had transformed our separated lives into something believable. My private gaming setup was moved to our bedroom. Her pride flags were hidden in closets. She was teaching my mother our morning routine she'd invented from YouTube videos. 3 hours of her lying with shocking creativity, our supposed weekend habits, my fictional preferences, the way we apparently bonded over shared values. My father grilled us about grandchildren, and she invented an entire on-the-spot timeline about waiting until I was more established, pointing to me just having a job interview as proof we were being responsible. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. After they left, a whole 2 days later, I found her on the bathroom floor, still wearing the traditional wife dress she'd frantically bought at Target. "I just spent hours describing our fake bedroom life to your mother," she said, exhausted. I sat next to her. "You saved me," I said. She looked at me with this sassy, "I'm goddamn her" face. Something changed after that. She started waiting up when I gamed late, claiming she was just on Singapore client time. She started combing my hair into weird styles because it looked so funny. She'd fall asleep reviewing designs on my bed because the lighting was better. Even started presenting every PowerPoint she made to me, her makeup done just to get in character. I started getting suspicious if she was somehow into me, but figured that to just be overthinking nonsense. Until 4 months ago, a year after moving in, I finally got a job. Nothing impressive. Data entry at a logistics company. But when I came home, she'd set up a whole party, complete with congratulations balloons and my favorite childhood cake. She even had on the sweatshirt that I once told her brought out her eyes. We spent that night drinking celebratory wine and playing Twister and Just Dance. We fell asleep in each other's arms during a Shrek marathon. In the morning, neither of us acknowledged it, but you could feel the tension. Then last week, her 26th birthday passed. Her parents could no longer force conversion therapy onto her. Not only that, but the design company she had been building got acquired. She could now go anywhere, do anything. Yesterday, she mentioned she was looking at apartments in Portland. "Better tech scene there," she said, avoiding my eyes. She was quiet for a long moment, scrolling through listings. Finally, she looked up. "My therapist says when I talk about you, I sound like I'm in love," she said. My heart dropped. I'd loved her for months now, but was afraid of saying anything because, well, duh. But now we're sitting in our kitchen, her in my old hoodie she claimed months ago, wondering what the hell is going on. The fridge starts humming louder, and I notice we're both holding our breath at the same time. Maylene's fingers wrap around her coffee mug so tight, her knuckles turn white, and I can see the steam rising between us like some kind of barrier. My brain goes completely blank, and all I can do is stare at the chip in the counter we've been meaning to fix for months. She sets the mug down with this careful movement like it might explode, and pushes her hair behind her ear the way she does when she's nervous. "We need to stop performing," she says quietly. I nod because my throat feels closed up. She suggests we try being completely honest for the next 24 hours, with no scripts or cover stories or pretending, and it feels way scarier than standing at that altar with all those people watching us lie. We shake on it like we're signing another business deal, except this time, her hand is warm, and she doesn't let go right away. The rest of that day, we circle around each other in the apartment, barely making eye contact, and I order pizza because neither of us can handle cooking. The next morning, she's already at the kitchen table, with 2 notebooks and colored pens spread out like we're planning a work project. She slides one notebook to me and starts writing options at the top of hers in neat block letters. We sit there for an hour listing everything out like it's a business meeting with 3 columns labeled "Stay roommates," "Try dating," and "Separate." Under each one, we write pros and cons while drinking way too much coffee and avoiding looking at each other. She taps her pen against the paper and finally says we should table any big decisions until we figure out the practical stuff first, which makes sense, but also feels like we're both scared. Day 2. 2 comes, and we're sitting on opposite ends of the couch with our legs pulled up, and she starts talking about how scared she is that her queer community would see her as a fraud for falling for her fake husband. I tell her I'm scared of what our families would do if this falls apart, and how disappointed they'd be after everything they've done for us. She nods, and picks at a thread on the couch cushion, while I stare at the ceiling fan going around and around. We order Chinese food, and eat it straight from the containers, while listing more fears, like how we don't even know each other's middle names or favorite movies that aren't Shrek. Day 3. I come out of my room at the same time she comes out of hers, and we bump into each other in the narrow hallway. We both freeze with maybe 6 inches between us, and I can smell her shampoo and see the sleep still in her eyes. My hand comes up like I'm going to touch her face, and she leans forward just a tiny bit, and then we both step back at exactly the same moment, like we practiced it. She says maybe we should go slow if we're going to try this, and I agree, even though every part of me wants to grab her and kiss her right there in that hallway. We spend the rest of the day in separate rooms texting each other stupid memes instead of talking. Day 4, she brings out her laptop and starts making a spreadsheet because of course she does, and we list all the ways we're tangled up legally and financially. Joint tax filing goes at the top, followed by health insurance through her company, and the lease in both our names for another 8 months. She adds, families think we're planning kids, and joint bank account for bills, and car insurance discount for married couples. The list gets longer and longer until it fills the whole screen, and we both just stare at it. I make us grilled cheese sandwiches, while she highlights the things that would be hardest to untangle in different colors. Day 5, she pulls up the Portland listings again on her tablet, while I open Excel on my laptop to run budget numbers for our current place. The early termination fee for our lease would be $3,000, plus losing our deposit, which would eat up most of my signing bonus and a chunk of her acquisition money. She shows me a studio in Portland that's half the size of our current place for the same price, and neither of us says anything for a long time. We both know staying means figuring out what we actually are to each other, but leaving means basically burning money we don't have. She closes the tablet and goes to her room without saying goodnight. The next week, my manager calls me into his office to explain the probation period rules since I'm still new. What's really happening here when Maylene says her therapist thinks she sounds in love? She drops this bomb right as she's looking at Portland apartments, which makes me wonder if she's testing him or protecting herself. The timing seems too perfect to be random. No time off for the next 2 months except for emergencies and mandatory overtime available that they strongly encourage taking. Any unexcused absences could mean termination, and I need this job too much to risk it, which means less flexibility for figuring out us. I tell Maylene that night and she nods like she expected it, but I can see her shoulders drop a little. We dig out our lease agreement from the filing cabinet she organized when we moved in and discover our renewal window opens in exactly 2 months. The paperwork shows the early termination fee in bold letters, plus all the penalties for breaking it before the term ends. We'd lose my entire savings and most of her acquisition money just to walk away from this apartment. She laughs, but it's not a happy sound, and says we're basically stuck together financially for at least that long whether we want to be or not. I pull out the tax forms since it's February, and we need to file as married couple, which saves us almost $4,000 compared to filing separately. Every form feels like another knot tying us together, and she keeps having to look up our wedding date because neither of us remembers it exactly. The numbers show how much money we save being married on paper, and it feels like the universe is laughing at us. She closes the laptop and stands up from the kitchen table, stretching her arms above her head before walking to the window and staring out at the rain hitting the glass. I stack the tax papers into a neat pile and notice her fingers drumming against the windowsill in that pattern she does when she's working through a problem. She turns around and pulls out her phone, opening the calendar app and creating a new event titled Relationship Check-In, scheduled for 30 days from now. Then shows me the screen with this half smile that makes my stomach flip. I add it to my own calendar while she makes us both coffee, moving around the kitchen with practiced efficiency, and we sit back down at the table where she pulls out a notebook and starts writing bullet points about what we should discuss at that meeting. The whole thing feels like we're planning a business merger instead of figuring out if we want to date, but somehow that makes it easier to handle. She writes, "Tell Kim" at the bottom of the list and underlines it twice before looking up at me. We both know Kim has been our biggest supporter through this whole fake marriage thing, sending us couple memes and asking about date nights we never actually have. I suggest maybe we should go on one real date first before telling anyone, just to see if there's something actually there beyond living together and pretending for our families. She nods and adds first date to the list, then crosses out "Tell Kim" and rewrites it below with an arrow pointing from the date. Her phone buzzes with another text from Kim asking how married life is treating us, and we both send back thumbs up emojis like we always do. 3 days later, we're walking around Green Lake on a Saturday morning, both still wearing our wedding rings because taking them off would mean explaining to anyone who asks why we're not wearing them anymore. She buys us coffee from the little stand near the parking lot, and we walk the whole loop, talking about actual stuff for once instead of logistics and bills. She tells me she's obsessed with horror movies, especially the really bad ones from the 80s. While I admit I watch cooking competition shows religiously, even though I can barely make pasta. We pass other couples holding hands, and she keeps her hands wrapped around her coffee cup, but when a dog runs up to us, she kneels down to pet it and looks up at me with this genuine smile I've never seen before. The whole thing is awkward, but also kind of nice, like we're teenagers on a first date instead of people who've been legally married for over a year. We plan a second date for the following weekend, something about checking out the new ramen place downtown, but then Tuesday comes and my manager pulls me aside about overtime opportunities that would really help with bills. The overtime shift is Saturday afternoon, right when we planned our date, and I know we need the money more than we need another awkward walk around the city. I text her about rescheduling and she sends back, "No worries, I understand." But when I get home that night, she's already in her room with the door closed. She comes out later to make dinner and we eat in mostly silence, both scrolling through our phones like we used to do before all this started. Thursday, she comes back from therapy with a whole list of homework her therapist gave her about setting boundaries in new relationships. She shows me the worksheet about no sleepovers for the first month, scheduled check-ins about feelings every few days, and clear communication about needs and expectations. We sit at the kitchen table again, going through each point like we're reviewing a contract, which actually helps because we're both better at following rules than figuring out emotions on our own. She tapes the list to the fridge next to our grocery list and the Wi-Fi password, making it just another part of our apartment's operating system. That night I open my laptop to message Kim about what's really happening between us, typing out this long explanation about how the fake marriage might be turning into something real, but we're both scared and confused. I delete it and start over, trying to sound more casual, but that doesn't work either. I write and delete 5 different versions before giving up and closing the laptop, because how do you explain that your business arrangement marriage is maybe becoming real when you're not even sure yourself? Saturday, while I'm at work doing overtime, my parents surprise FaceTime us, and Maylene handles it alone at first, slipping into our practiced routine about how I'm at work being responsible and building our future. When I get home, she's still on the call, so I join in, both of us falling into our performance without even thinking about it, her hand on my shoulder while we tell them about our week. After we hang up, we both feel gross about how easily we can still lie to them, and she says it felt like putting on a costume that doesn't fit anymore, which is exactly right. The next week, she schedules a virtual tour with a realtor in Portland, her laptop propped up on the coffee table, while she walks around our apartment showing the realtor what she's looking for in her new place. I sit in my room, but can hear her getting excited about the exposed brick and the big windows in one unit that's actually in her budget with a reasonable move-in timeline. She mentions the deposit would be due in 6 weeks if she decides to take it, and I realize our 30-day check-in would happen right before she needs to decide. We're back at the kitchen table doing our taxes together properly this time, entering all our financial information while discussing how we'd split the refund if we separate, which feels weirdly intimate considering we're talking about dividing assets. She jokes that we're the most practical maybe couple ever while calculating how much we'd each get, but there's something sad in her voice when she says it. Friday night is her company's acquisition celebration party at some fancy hotel downtown, and I go as her husband because that's still what I am on paper. Her co-workers keep coming up to tell me how supportive I've been of her career, how she talks about me all the time, how lucky she is to have someone who believes in her dreams. I smile and nod, but feel like a complete fraud since I barely knew about her work until recently. Just saw her typing away at her computer late at night without really understanding what she was building. During the speeches about the company's success, she reaches under the table and squeezes my hand, holding on longer than necessary while her boss talks about vision and dedication and taking risks. After the party winds down and we get home, she crashes on the couch still wearing her fancy dress while I clean up the takeout containers we'd ordered instead of cooking. 3 days later, she brings someone over from her book club, a woman with short purple hair and thick glasses, who looks at me like I'm some kind of science experiment. I actually stay in the living room instead of hiding in my bedroom like usual, pretending to work on my laptop while they sit at the kitchen table with tea and cookies. She's explaining our situation to her friend, and I hear her say we're complicated and evolving, which is way better than the total lie she used to tell people about us being madly in love. Her friend keeps glancing at me and asking pointed questions about how we met and why we got married so fast, but Maylene handles it smoothly without making me sound like a complete loser who needed a fake wife to keep his parents happy. The next morning we have our first real fight when she starts pulling her pride flags out of the closet where we'd stuffed them during my parents' surprise visit. She wants them back up on the wall, but I'm worried about more unexpected family visits since my mom has started dropping by without warning sometimes. We go back and forth for 20 minutes, her holding the rainbow flag like a shield while I pace around trying to explain why this makes me nervous. She finally agrees to put them in her workspace instead of the living room, which isn't perfect, but at least we both stop yelling. Week 5 comes, and we decide to go to IKEA because her desk chair is broken and I need a new bookshelf. The store is packed with couples picking out furniture together, and something about watching them debate coffee tables makes my chest tight. We're in the kitchen section looking at dish racks when I just blurt out that I've been in love with her for months. She freezes with a wooden spoon in her hand and asks for time to process this, then drops everything in our cart and walks straight to the exit. I'm really curious about this pattern where they keep treating their relationship like a business deal. Check-ins, bullet points, worksheets from therapy. Makes me wonder if they're both just scared to actually feel something real for each other right now. I follow her to the car, where we sit in silence for 5 minutes before she drives us home without buying anything. 2 days later, she tells me she's taking an overnight trip to Portland to look at apartments in person since the acquisition means she can work from anywhere now. I help her pack even though my hands are shaking, because what if she loves it there? What if she meets someone real? What if this is just her way of letting me down easy without having to reject me to my face? She leaves early Saturday morning, and I spend the entire day deep cleaning our apartment just to keep busy, scrubbing the bathroom tiles until my knees hurt and reorganizing the kitchen cabinets 3 times. That night, I can't sleep, so I vacuum at 2 a.m. and then feel bad about probably waking the neighbors. Sunday afternoon, my phone buzzes with a 3-minute voice memo from her saying, Portland feels freeing, but also lonely, that she misses our weird kitchen dance where we navigate around each other making coffee, misses having someone who knows she needs caffeine at exactly 3 p.m. without having to ask. I listen to it 12 times, memorizing every word and the way her voice cracks a little at the end. Before she gets back Monday evening, I reorganize the whole apartment to create more shared spaces instead of our separate territories. I move my gaming chair to the living room corner and clear space on the bedroom bookshelf for her design books. Small changes to show I want us to blend our lives more instead of living like polite roommates. She walks in carrying her overnight bag and stops in the doorway when she sees the changes, then drops her bag and crosses the room to where I'm standing by the kitchen counter. We kiss for real this time, not the dry pecs from our wedding, but an actual kiss that makes my heart pound. And right in the middle of it, my phone starts ringing with my mom's special ringtone asking about Chinese New Year plans. We pull apart and just laugh at the terrible timing while the phone keeps ringing. Week 6 starts with my mom sending WeChat messages about a fertility clinic her friend friend recommends, complete with success rate statistics and testimonials from happy couples. The family group chat explodes with my aunties offering advice about conception timing and which foods increase fertility, and when Maylene sees the messages on my phone, her face goes completely pale. We spend that evening researching how to handle this without telling our families the truth, finally deciding we need professional help to figure this out. The next day, we book a couples therapy session for Thursday afternoon to establish ground rules if we're really going to try dating while married. The therapist is this older woman who doesn't even blink when we explain our whole situation, just nods and starts asking practical questions about boundaries and expectations. We agree on dating while keeping separate bedrooms for now, having weekly relationship check-ins, and not telling our families anything until we're absolutely sure what this is. Friday morning, I go to my manager's office to negotiate a more predictable schedule so I can actually plan dates without getting called in for surprise overtime. He gives me partial success. No more last-minute weekend shifts, but I still can't take any real time off for another month because we're short-staffed. I'll take what I can get though, because at least now I can make plans without worrying about work ruining everything. That same afternoon, Maylene gets a call from Portland HR asking about her relocation package details and whether she's moving alone or with a spouse, because the benefits are completely different. She puts them on speaker while pacing our living room, and I watch her hands shake as she asks for more time to figure out the paperwork. They give her a week, but warn that spouse benefits include moving costs, temporary housing for two, and job placement help for me. She hangs up, and we both stare at each other knowing this changes the math on everything. 2 days later, she's working on a design pitch for a new client and asks me to look at it since I've been studying their industry for my data work. I tell her straight up it's too safe, looks like every other corporate pitch I've seen, and she needs to take more risks with the color scheme and layout. She gets defensive immediately, says I don't know anything about design, and storms off to her workspace, but I hear her clicking around making changes all night, and when she presents it 3 days later, the client loves the bold new direction. She comes home with the signed contract and admits I was right, but that my delivery sucked and I need to work on not sounding so harsh. We celebrate with takeout, but the Portland question hangs between us like a wall. Saturday morning, we sit down with my laptop to research what divorce would actually look like if we went that route. The Washington State website is brutal with its requirements. Minimum 6 months waiting period, thousands in legal fees, division of assets we've already mixed together, health insurance complications, and tax implications that make my head spin. We spend 3 hours going through forums and legal sites, finding out we'd need separate lawyers, court appearances, and documentation, proving we've been living separately, which we obviously haven't been. We close the laptop and don't talk for an hour, just sitting on opposite ends of the couch processing how tangled our lives have become. The next week, I come down with the worst flu I've had in years, probably from stress and not sleeping right. Maylene doesn't hesitate for a second, just starts bringing me soup every few hours, making sure I take the medicine on schedule and sitting with me while I'm burning up with fever and rambling about random stuff from my childhood. She wipes my forehead with a cold cloth and stays up all night when my fever spikes, and somewhere in that haze of being sick, I realize this is already real, whatever we want to call it. When I'm better, I text one of her queer friends asking if we can meet for coffee, because I need to apologize for the position our fake marriage put Maylin in. Her friend meets me at a place near Capitol Hill and doesn't hold back, explaining how Maylin lost credibility in some spaces, how people questioned if she was really gay, how some friends stopped inviting her to things because they thought she'd sold out. I listen without making excuses and own my part in it, admitting I didn't think about those consequences when we made our deal. Her friend says Maylene never complained, but everyone could see it hurt her. That weekend, we finally tell Kim everything over dinner at her place, the whole messy truth about our feelings, the confusion, the Portland option hanging over us. Kim laughs so hard she almost chokes on her wine and says she knew something was different when we stopped complaining about each other at work functions. But then she gets serious and warns us our families won't handle any changes well, especially if we divorce or if Maylene moves away, and we need to be ready for that storm. Monday morning, our lease renewal notice shows up with 2 options: 6 months at a 30% higher rate for the flexibility to break it, or 12 months at our current rate. Both feel massive when we don't even know what we are to each other yet. The landlord wants an answer in 3 weeks. We pin it to the fridge next to the Portland offer that's been staring at us. 2 weeks into this whole mess, Maylene gets the formal Portland job offer with all the details. $20,000 more than she makes now. Full relocation package, moving stipend, and a senior designer title. They need an answer in 2 weeks. She prints it out and leaves it on the kitchen counter, where we both have to see it every single day. This piece of paper that could change everything. I try to be helpful and suggest we could do long distance if she takes it, that I could visit on weekends when I can get time off work, maybe even look for data jobs in Portland eventually. She shakes her head and points out we haven't even figured out what we are at close distance, and trying to maintain whatever this is across cities seems impossible when we can barely talk about it in the same room. We table the discussion, but it comes back up every time we're in the kitchen together. Then yesterday, my mom calls to announce they're coming for dinner next week to discuss our 5-year plan for the family. I know exactly what this means. Questions about grandchildren, pressure about buying property, lectures about career advancement, and probably a slideshow my dad made about successful couples in our extended family. Maylene overhears the call, and the dread on her face matches exactly what I'm feeling, because we both know this dinner is going to be brutal, no matter what we decide about Portland or our marriage or any of it. We spend the next week preparing for my parents' visit, like students cramming for finals. Maylene makes flashcards with answers about our future plans, while I practice deflecting questions about babies. We sit at our kitchen table running through scenarios, where my mom asks about fertility clinics. I pretend to be my dad asking about our savings for a house down payment. She plays my mom wanting to know which room would be the nursery. We agree on one hard rule, that we won't promise anything specific no matter how much they push. Every night after work, we quiz each other on our stories to keep them straight. She writes notes on her phone about which relatives we supposedly visited last month. I make a list of fake weekend trips we've taken together. We even stage photos around the apartment to look more couple-like. She moves her skincare stuff into my bathroom, and I put my gaming headset in the living room. We practice sitting closer on the couch and holding hands without it feeling weird. The night before the dinner, we're both so nervous we can't sleep. There's something interesting about how they're treating this dinner prep like a performance, when their whole relationship started as one big show for their families. Now they're making flashcards and staging photos like students cramming for a test. But I wonder if they realize they're basically doing the same thing they did at the beginning. The difference is they actually care about each other now, which makes all this pretending feel different somehow. I hear her pacing in her room at 3 in the morning. When the dinner finally arrives, my parents show up 20 minutes early. My dad immediately starts talking about his coworker's son, who just had twins. My mom pulls out her phone to show us baby photos from my cousin's new kid. We make it through the appetizers with just small talk about work and weather. But during the main course, my dad brings up fertility treatments his friend used. Meline puts down her fork and calmly says we're not discussing that right now. The silence stretches so long I can hear the clock ticking in the kitchen. My mom's face goes red and she starts to argue, but Meline doesn't budge. I back her up saying, we have our own timeline that works for us. My dad stands up and says we're being selfish about giving them grandchildren. They leave before dessert, my mom crying and my dad not saying goodbye. After they're gone, we sit in our kitchen surrounded by all the uneaten food. Malin starts laughing in this broken way that turns into crying. I reach across the table and take her hand for real this time. We talk until 4 in the morning about what we actually want. She admits she's been falling for me since the birthday party. I tell her I've been in love with her for months. We decide to try being a real couple for 3 months as a test. No telling our families yet. Just us figuring out if this works when it's not fake. It feels scary, but also like the first honest choice we've made together. That night we share a bed on purpose for the first time. There's nervous laughter about which side of the bed we each want. She likes the left side near the window, and I prefer the right near the door. We lie there stiff as boards at first, neither of us sure where to put our arms. Eventually she rolls over and puts her head on my chest. I wrap my arm around her, and we both relax into it. We fall asleep like that, and wake up still tangled together. The next week I mess up the inventory system at work, and have to stay late all weekend to fix it. Instead of just disappearing like I usually would, I text Maylene about what happened. I ask if we can move our Saturday plans to next week. She texts back that she'll bring me dinner at the office instead. When she shows up with Thai food, I realize this is what real couples do. They adjust plans and support each other through boring work problems. Meanwhile, her new company integration hits problems when the design teams fight over creative direction. She comes home ranting about how the Portland team wants to change everything. I start suggesting ways she could compromise or present her ideas differently. She stops me mid-sentence and asks if I can just listen instead of trying to fix it. We make a new rule that night to ask if someone wants solutions or just venting. It takes practice, but we start getting better at knowing what the other person needs. We find a couples therapist through my insurance who specializes in complex family situations. In our third session, she helps us plan how to tell our families something closer to the truth. We set a goal to tell one parent the real story within 3 months. Just thinking about that conversation makes us both feel sick. The therapist gives us homework to practice being honest in small ways first. Our lease renewal comes up, and we have to decide whether to commit to another year. The 6-month option costs $300 more per month. We sit with our laptops doing the math on what we can afford. The financial strain would be real, but having an exit option feels necessary. We decide to split the extra cost based on our income percentages. I pay 40% since I make less at my data entry job. She covers 60% with her design company salary. Signing that lease feels like another step towards something real. Her company offers her a remote work trial for 3 months. She can stay in Seattle but has to fly to Portland once a month for meetings. The trial might hurt her chances at the promotion she's been working toward. She takes it anyway and tells me she wants to see where this goes. I can't believe she's choosing to potentially slow her career for us. We decide to tell Kim that we're officially dating for real now. We meet her for coffee and explain that what started fake has turned into something else. She laughs and says she's been preparing cover stories for months just in case. Having someone else know the truth and support us feels huge. She promises to back us up if our parents start asking questions. The relief of having an ally makes both of us tear up a little. 2 weeks pass with us figuring out how to be a real couple while still dealing with fake marriage stuff. Malin decides to make pad thai one evening, and I help chop vegetables while she stirs the sauce. She holds up her phone to take a picture of us cooking together and posts it to Instagram without thinking much about it. Within 10 minutes, both our phones start buzzing like crazy. My aunt sends 12 messages in a row, analyzing how close we're standing. Her mom screenshots the photo and circles where our shoulders touch. My uncle texts me that we look happy and asks when we're having kids. Her cousins flood the group chat with baby name suggestions. We turn our phones to silent and keep cooking, her hand finding mine between stirring the noodles. That night after dinner, her phone rings, and it's her dad. I watch her face change as he talks, her shoulders getting tighter with each word. She tries to explain that we need time, but he keeps cutting her off. He tells her she's dishonoring the family by not giving them grandchildren yet. When she mentions her career, he gets louder, and I can hear him through the phone from across the room. She tries one more time to explain, but he hangs up on her. The tears start immediately, and don't stop for an hour while I hold her on the couch. She keeps saying she thought things would be different now that we're really together. Around midnight, we end up sitting on the bathroom floor, just like we did after my parents ambushed us. The cold tiles feel familiar under us as we lean against the tub. We talk about how being in love doesn't make our families less complicated. She points out that her dad will still expect grandchildren whether our marriage is real or fake. I mention that my mom will still show up unannounced no matter how much we actually care about each other. We make a plan to save money in case things get worse with our families. She suggests keeping her Portland job offers as backup options if we need to escape. We agree to keep trying, but also stay practical about what might happen. The next week, I open our shared calendar on my laptop and type in real first date, my choice, for Saturday. She gets the notification on her phone and accepts it with a heart emoji. No questions about where we're going or what we're doing. Just trust that we're going to figure this out together. Our families are still complicated, and her career weird decisions are still hanging over us. The pressure for grandchildren isn't going away, and neither are the surprise visits, but we're choosing to try anyway, one real date at a time. Appreciate you sticking with me while I rambled through all that. Hopefully I didn't get too nosy with the questions. Catch you next time. Like the video, it helps more than you think.